Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday, and welcome back to another exciting AdvisorShares AlphaNooner. Today, we're very excited to welcome back Trent Woloveck, Co-Chief Strategy Director at Jushi, joining us today to spend a little bit of time talking through what is going on in the wider cannabis space, as well as spending a little bit of time digging into some interesting state stories between Pennsylvania and Virginia, a state that Jushi has a lot of interesting exposure to. So we'll get into the conversation as we go, but a good reminder, if you're out there, we want you to join the conversation. If you have questions, comments, I've already seen some in the chat so far, which is great. You're always welcome to put them in, and we'll try to get to them towards the end as we go along. With all that said, thanks so much, Trent. Really appreciate you taking the time. How is your Thursday going so far?
Busy? Lovely. I've had a great Thursday morning, but neither here nor there. I'm excited about the continued momentum in cannabis. So that's what we're here to talk to, not the headaches and the fires that I've been dealing with this morning.
Oh no, life always, life will continually, I feel like, throw different things at you. And I sort of, when it rains, it pours things. But so especially appreciate you taking the time. So maybe let's kind of whip through and start kind of on the high level temp check for cannabis, where we are halfway through 2025. We've seen kind of some momentum and interest and life kind of breathe back into the space. Would love to kind of get your high level take in terms of where we are in the cannabis space at large, because you've been here for a long time.
Yeah, look, I think, in the industry, we've had our ebbs and flows. We've been on a roller coaster ride for quite some time. We've dipped pretty low here for the last 3.5 years. But that I think has done wonders for the operators that are within the industry. I think we've really been able to focus on the business and not focus on continued growth. And so I think we've really been able to dial in our operations. And the good news is, cannabis is being talked about on a minute by minute basis. It feels like very, very recently. And oh, by the way, it's been talked about by the Vice President of the United States, a lot of Republicans, a lot of mouthpieces. And so, I feel really good about, where we're at from a momentum perspective. The federal level will be what the federal level will be. Obviously working on stuff there, but our main focus at Jushi is really, what's going on at the state level, and those states being, mainly Pennsylvania, Virginia, and, some ancillary stuff in Massachusetts and Ohio. So
that makes sense. Again, I think that's what you want to see from operators, focusing in on where you can control and what you can control. Again, hopefully we see that federal story resolve, but yeah, on a state by state story, you want to be able to focus in on those markets. So we will talk about it. I did just want to, finally touch on the federal side, just because, as you mentioned, we've seen that increase in voices, whether it's sort of celebrities or it's people kind of close to the new administration or the administration themselves. Would love to, does it seem different this time? It feels like there's more of a unified message, unified sort of ask from the administration. Does that have what's the sort of takeaway there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very clear. We finally had fentanyl, which, has killed thousands and hundreds of thousands probably of individuals, maybe even, millions. But, we saw that finally move from a Schedule 2 to a Schedule 1.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty simple. Not a lot of people put up too much fight on that. And so, I think we saw precedent and some and a process around that. And so, yeah, I mean, we've been sitting on scientific data for, 2+ years now on why, cannabis should be, moved from a Schedule 1 narcotic to a Schedule 3 narcotic. If you don't believe in that and you want to keep cannabis as a Schedule 1 narcotic, like, get out of here. I have more choice words for that, but I'll leave it at that. But progress is crawl, walk, run in cannabis. In 2010 we had a couple medical markets. In 2014, I was one of 10 people to have an adult use license in Colorado, be part of that. And we're now in 2025 where, we have 40 states and 24 adult use stores. So, don't, people who haven't been around and want to cut to the finish line, that just don't work like that. And so, we're going to continue to, execute on what we know and how we know progress works here in the United States. And that's what we're going to continue to do.
Yep, that's great. Again, I think ultimately it can build up momentum. I think encouraging to see the rescheduling for fentanyl happen relatively smoothly and quickly, something that the administration has been, kind of attuned to for a while. I think cannabis is similar in some ways. I think, like you mentioned, obviously we have seen some medical support, which would kind of disallow it from being in that Schedule 1 category to start. But I also think there's also an angle with sort of the veteran element, the veteran medicine, the veteran access. Ultimately, that can also be a benefit on top of it being just a widely popular issue for Americans. And so hopefully we see that kind of come to be. But again, not what you can, control from a company perspective. So again, ultimately, maybe we'll focus more in on kind of the state.
Yeah, and look, Schedule 3 is the domino that kicks off the long chain of events.
Yes.
How much easier is it to have the conversation from a banking perspective when you're not talking about a Schedule 1 narcotic versus a Schedule 3 narcotic? Now it doesn't automatically, make that be, but boy, somebody having to vote for a Schedule 1 narcotic to go into the banking system versus a Schedule 1 narcotic, come on. Being able to look at and understand at a state level penalties or crimes committed.
Mm-hmm.
I think a judge looks at it very different when something's a Schedule 3 narcotic versus a Schedule 1 narcotic. It allows them some cover to be able to reopen the conversation. And if you don't understand that, I'm sorry, but you need to understand that, because that's the way it works. As somebody who, has continued to push and push, that's the reality. So, they say don't hate the player, hate the game. Well, figure out how to play the game.
Yep. No, that's important. And I think an important reminder that Schedule 3, like you're saying, is not the end all be all, but it is an important unlock on a ton of different levels and kind of builds that important momentum to really, keep pushing beyond that ultimately. But again, in itself.
Yeah. And the last piece, we have reschedule, we have safer. And to me, the biggest piece, Senator Mitch McConnell, who opened the loophole 7+ years ago now, just wrote a pretty powerful op-ed yesterday, and he said we're closing that loophole. That is not what I intended the farm bill to be. There's a $7 trillion opportunity within hemp to be a disruptor. Not part of that is being cannabinoids. There's a lot of other opportunities from a agricultural perspective. And so, I think that's, the rope not dope is like the quick little blurb about it, but like it's the truth. We were looking at it as Jushi in 2018, 2019, and we pulled back like in 2019, 2020. Like we understand, where that market was, what and where it was going. I don't think we could have ever foreseen the market that's been created, anybody in this industry, quite frankly. And so, I think we're going to continue to see progress on that front. The 1 year sunshine, like, cool, great. Drinks, yeah, cool, go have at it.
Sure.
And so, we're more concerned about, the THCA flower that carries heavy metals, yeast, mold, mildew, producers that, are in houses or on, property that isn't theirs, flooding the market with that sort of product for consumers from a public health and safety perspective. It's an absolute nightmare. I just spent, 48 hours secret shopping in Philly. Like it's everywhere. I walked down a 6-block part of Philly, and I walked into 18 stores. 16 of the 18 stores sold THCA flower. And so, that's just fact. There's 2,178 vape and smoke shops in Philadelphia alone. And so, you can do the math. And so it's not a small issue. We have synthetic cannabinoids being in vapes. We all know, the issues that leads to from a consumer health and safety perspective. So, not on my watch. That's not going to happen. So, we're working hard to get that, and we've gotten a lot of momentum at the federal level, at the state level, and we'll see how that plays out too.
Yeah, that's really important. I definitely think, it demands time to regulate, to protect people from those bad actors, those bad products that are in the mix. I do think it is something that has really blossomed and kind of exploded just because of the popularity of people wanting cannabis and kind of turning to what they can find, which is hemp. But again, like you're mentioning, I think as it exists now without the regulation and kind of with people kind of driving through this loophole, ultimately it puts people at risk. It's not great. And it sounds like it's at least in the stages of getting addressed and getting the appropriate attention to get there, which is great to see from an industry perspective.
Absolutely.
I would love to hear more about the time in Pennsylvania. I see Stevie, which obviously we wanted to spend time getting into PA as a state and kind of how Jushi fits into it and everything else. Would love to hear a little bit more about, so you had gone to Pennsylvania, gone to kind of test and see what the kind of illicit and hemp market looked like. What was the secret shopping?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been secret shopping in Pennsylvania for months. And so, that more to come on that. We'll continue to keep people updated as that progresses. My other, much larger concern and focus in Pennsylvania is around adult use.
Yes.
We are obviously seeing the budget, drag out into, the summer months. The Democrats in the House, they seem to like pass unserious bills. And so, they've sent over House Bill 12, which was a state level store bill that was killed very quickly by the Senate Republicans. We now have two very real bills in the House, bipartisan support. So Rep. Almond Brown, Rep. Abby Major, Rep. Emily Kincaid, they all put forth ideas for a House structure that works. And then we saw last week Senator Sharif Street and Senator Danny Laughlin. Senator Danny Laughlin has really taken the lead on this one. A Republican. Also important to point out, he's the chair of Law and Justice in the Senate, which is where that bill will have to run through before it gets to the floor. And so a lot of work done by a lot of different stakeholders across the Commonwealth. And so we're excited as the industry to where those pieces of legislation have gotten to. Look, it comes down to one person and one person only in that state, quite frankly. What does Josh Shapiro want to do? Does he want to step up and take leadership? Get him to a point where, the bills that are 97% the same in the two chambers, get them to a point where everybody's comfortable and pass it alongside with the budget. It's $400+ million of tax revenue annualized. That coupled with skilled gaming, another, 350 to 500 million bucks. That 750 to $1 billion a year. Boy, does that cover a lot of gaps. I mean, they're, you can see it. They're $2 to $2.5 billion apart from the budget this year. That's not including the federal cuts on SNAP and on Medicaid. And so, throw in another 130 million bucks on SNAP and 3 billion on Medicaid, and that hole gets a lot bigger. I mean, they only have 7 billion or so bucks left in the rainy day fund, and so that disappears really quick. And oh, by the way, you can't go to zero on that. That's against the law. And so, they're in between a rock and a hard place. And do you want to raise taxes on people? Not really. Not when you have something that's 80 to 90% popular in the Commonwealth, and you can raise a lot of money off of it. I mean, I say it out loud, and I convince myself more and more every day, like, it's a no-brainer. So what's the problem? I mean, it's leadership getting together and hammering out what it looks like.
Yep. I think when you put it in those terms, it makes so much sense. Are you going to pick option A, the popular thing, allowing it and letting people have it and raising tax revenue? Or are you going to pick B, the unpopular thing, raising taxes and also preventing people from getting direct access to safe tested products? It doesn't like a brainer.
And for the people that want to gripe about passing a regulated adult use marketplace, commercial adult use marketplace, tell me where you live. Mm-hmm. Tell me what neighborhood you live in. My ass will be on the plane the next day, and I will go buy cannabis in your neighborhood. 100%. I will guarantee it. And so it's already in these neighborhoods. Yep. Gambling is already in these neighborhoods. I'm a lot more addicted to gambling than I am cannabis. I can assure you that.
Sure.
I mean, I'm gambling every day now because I can do it on my phone. Whereas I was gambling when I just went to Vegas. Like, I love it. Sure. And so cannabis I use in the evening when I want to go to sleep. I'm not a social person on cannabis. And so it's not something that's not in the community. And unfortunately, what's in the community now, they don't give a shit about who they sell it to, age. They don't care what the product is. I mean, I was walking into some shops and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, I couldn't even bring myself to buy it. And so it's an issue that's public health and safety. And quite frankly, it's an issue that the Republicans are about to own federally and in Pennsylvania. It's embarrassing for the Democrats.
Yeah, no, I think that's a big, huge motivating factor, is to kind of get a dunk or a win on, what had been failed in the previous administration ultimately. For Pennsylvania, you mentioned Shapiro. I feel like he had been, at least recently, much more vocal about trying to get something done and the benefits of cannabis and the benefits of having a safe, regulated market, all those things. Do you think that that's real? Do you think it's just sort of politicians being politicians? Are you paying it any mind at all, even?
It was lip service before. Josh is committed to getting something done this year. Like, he's serious about it. And so, he back last year and the year before, like, he mentioned it during the budget, and then he never mentioned it again. I mean, he's been kind of saying adult use cannabis for, the better part of 4 or 5 months now, every week. And so, boy, I don't think he wants to become known as the politician as he's starting to, run for governor again in 2026 and then run for president in 2028, as somebody who can't get something done, something that he's been promising, since he's been elected. And so, it's time for him to take a leadership position within the Commonwealth and pass this. The legislature has gotten it to a point to where he can do that 100%. We have bipartisan, bicameral bills that are very, very, very close, with support on the Republican and on the Democrat side, to get this done. Governor, it's time for you to do something, period.
That's fantastic. Again, if you're watching, I would very much appreciate you getting that done 1,000%. You mentioned, so again, we have a better two bills that kind of are basically saying the same thing. You had mentioned we had kind of abandoned the sort of state model approach. That's a net positive for Pennsylvania. Is that true? Can you?
Yes. In a state where they are operating at a multiple $billion deficit, to think that they're going to leverage state stores, and you can go back and watch the presser Rep Frankel and Rep Krajewski, they very clearly said, oh, those stores aren't going in with the liquor stores. We're going to build them separate. Okay. So, I know how much a store costs to build. An okay store costs, $750K to build. Okay. You're going to build 200 stores. Well, that's 150 million bucks. I don't know where you pull that from before you start, getting revenue and getting, tax dollars. And oh, by the way, it takes a long time to find locations that aren't within 1,000 square feet of schools or a place of worship. It's years. It is such an amateur idea to spend money that the state doesn't have and allow the illicit market to continue to thrive for years while you try to do that. And you have 200 stores that have been proven to be good operators, that have already spent the money, that are, within the Commonwealth to flip the switch tomorrow.
Yep.
I could literally start selling adult use cannabis in Pennsylvania tomorrow, and I'd start paying 12% tax or 13% tax or 10%, whatever they want me to pay in tax.
Sure.
And I'd go from, a billion. It used to be $1.7 billion market. It's probably, closer to like 1.4 now, maybe like 1.3, because of, intoxicating hemp and synthetic cannabinoids, as well as adult use markets, all around the surrounding the state. And I guarantee you, overnight, that turns into a 2.5 to $3 billion market like that. We have the supply, we have the channels, we have the existing infrastructure. All you have to do is flip the switch. We'll operate under the medical regs for the time being, allow people that are over the age of 21 to come into the stores, and voila, you have an additional 250 million bucks of tax revenue. It's just that simple. I love to say it's just math. Well, that one's just math.
Yeah. So you're ready tomorrow, basically, or tomorrow. Yesterday. You're ready yesterday, ultimately, is the way to say it.
The industry is more than ready to start. And look, we have more than enough room to include additional people that want to get into the industry. There are pockets of Pennsylvania where I want to put stores, but I can't, because I have no more. I have no more slots available. There are cannabis deserts in Pennsylvania for people to open up stores. There are niche areas of the business that are not being covered right now. And there's going to be continued growth in the market as we continue to, we can't even do pre-rolls yet. That's 10% of typical sales. And so there's a lot of different options for people that want to continue to come in to the cannabis space. We can't do delivery. My delivery crushes it in Virginia, where, it's a seventh store for us. And so there are plenty of options to create businesses, to build on the existing infrastructure that's in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, but sometimes, so I feel like a huge unlock if they go recreational soon, and then beyond that, there's additional ways to kind of continue to build and build and build. For Jushi specifically, obviously, I know you have a big footprint relative in Pennsylvania. So I'm guessing for you as a company, that would be, huge boon. Can you kind of tell us or put any numbers to it in terms of, specifically for Jushi as part of your mix and your areas of footprints, what impact it really has for you when that happens?
It's huge. pretty simple. 18 stores of our 40 stores are in Pennsylvania. I think we're very well known within the industry to have some of the best, retail locations, and feel like we're well positioned with all 18 of our locations now for when adult use comes to get, look, a 2x lift, which is probably what it will be, is massive. Majority of that will flow right to the bottom line because my rent stays the same. I won't add double the amount of people, but I will have to add more people. And so that's not like a 1-for-1. I'll be moving more products, more units, just a better, more efficient business. And so, and you can see it, like, GTI, that's the gold standard. That's who we strive to be as Jushi. Why are they up into the 30s when it comes to like a percent of EBITDA to revenue? It's because, they have a kick-ass Illinois business. They have a kick-ass, New Jersey business. They have real adult use markets that they've scaled up in. And so when you look at a ratioed basis, or what we'd call the most impact to a business, it is us and us alone, because Cresco has as many stores as us, Verano, Trulieve, GTI, they're all up into the hundreds as far as stores, or close to.
Mm-hmm.
I have 40, and 18 of my 40 are Pennsylvanian. So it's not hard to do the math. Oh, by the way, I have 125,000 square foot facility built out, ready to go. More land around it if we need it. We have options to expand within that building as well. And so we're looking at all of that to be able to meet demand of supply when that happens. Like it's tight. It's tight right now. I'm not gonna lie, it's tight right now.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to biomass in Pennsylvania, but we know when the time comes, that flip can switch, and the supply is going to be there to support that lift in the marketplace for sure.
That sounds good. So it sounds like you are fully in go position, ready to go, prepared and prepped on Pennsylvania when that happens. Is there anything that you have to do, anything else that you have to do to be ready in terms of even kind of competing against this, illicit THCA market or anything like that? Is it ultimately come down to when it turns on, you're able to really say, hey, this is important, understand the difference as a consumer between what you're buying that could have mold or something like that versus what you're buying here, where it is, very safe, very regulated, all those things. Is that a consideration at all, or no?
I mean, I don't know if you can see that. No, you really can't. But I don't know who wants to walk into a vape shop and see Pineapple Willie Indica with the THC posted on there at 56.14%. Come on.
Fair.
Come on.
Yeah.
It works, and it works right now because you don't need a medical card. Christ, you don't even need a fucking driver's license. And so it is something that the consumer in the United States, we've been trained that if it's in a package and it's sold in a brick and mortar store, it's been tested some more, and tested even more on top of that. Public health and safety, consumer safety is like the staple of America. When I go to Mexico, I don't drink the water. But when I go to Turks and Caicos, I don't drink the water. I mean, in parts of America, I guess I don't drink the water now that I'm saying that out loud. But I go buy bottled water, and so it's packaged goods that we've been trained to trust because it's been tested, it's been validated, it's in a clean facility, there's no doctrines in it, blah 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 blah. And so when people start to get educated on it, and we can actually go out and market, and we don't have to be stifled by the regulators, then people are going to learn really quick between some person reaching into a jar with their hand, divvying out 10 grams of flour versus having real options in a real clean place. People aren't that naive.
No, I think that makes sense entirely. So again, hopefully we see Pennsylvania in terms of, I guess anything else on Pennsylvania. I did want to kind of turn to the other markets, just kind of getting a check-in on those fronts, maybe between, especially Virginia a little bit, but otherwise it seems like things are all go on Pennsylvania when they happen. It seems like there's a lot of reasons for Pennsylvania to go rec, which also, again, as a reminder, would be half of the states in the US, which is kind of crazy having rec programs. But is there anything else sort of on the Pennsylvania side of things?
No, I mean, I think, again, I just want to, I think it's important to continue to call out and thank, legislators who are taking initiative and leadership on this stuff. And so, we're working really, really hard. I just hope politics don't get in the way of this, and we can get something done.
That's true. It's probably a good reminder if we have any watchers who are tuning in from Pennsylvania, it's probably a great time to try to contact those representatives, make it known it's important to you. All those things I think I've heard can make a difference in terms of raising the issue and really pushing it home. Although again, it seems like a no-brainer, but hopefully we see that happen and come through. So I think that's fantastic in Pennsylvania. Again, very excited. Hopefully it comes soon. On the other state side of things, I know we touched briefly on Virginia. I know also Ohio is in the mix. Any sort of high level highlights on sort of additional markets outside of Pennsylvania, even though I know that is the main focus?
Yeah, I mean, Virginia gets better and better by the day. Nice. From looking at November's election, which is going to be a huge driver for a commercial adult use program come early 2026. So Abigail Spanberger, the two polls, the Roanoke poll and the VCU poll. One poll, she went from up 15 to up 17, and the other poll, she went from up 10 to up 12 in the last couple months. She's doing a bus tour. She's getting out. She's shaking hands, kissing babies. You talk to that woman, and you're like, okay, she's the real deal. And so it's just about getting out there, having her meet folks. And so I think she's going to continue to do that. Like I said, she's U.S. Congressperson and ex-CIA agent. And so, it's not like she's some, crazy, liberal that wants to do socialism and so on and so forth. And so, she's a very much a moderate in the middle. She'd be the perfect candidate to lead Elon Musk's American Party. I'd support her for that. And so, that's that's a real thing. I'm trying to switch my political party right now, but neither here nor there. But she continues to do a lot of the groundwork. The speaker, Don Scott, who's the first African American speaker in Virginia history. I mean, he's a phenomenal leader of that caucus, and so he's going to continue to carry the House, I think, as well. The big beautiful bill, which obviously passed a couple weeks ago. By the way, that's a phenomenal thing for our business. There was a couple good things for businesses in there that I think we're going to take advantage of. But that also rubs some people the wrong way. In Virginia, obviously based right there in DC, in Northern Virginia, based in DC. I think we'll continue to see some momentum around those moderate Democrats, and that's who kind of exists kind of in those areas that have been affected by the federal
interesting
program that's going on right now.
I was going to say, for the big beautiful bill, I knew the impact, or one of the big impacts potentially for cannabis, is kind of the cutting of a lot of the state support and things like that, and kind of a push for increased need for kind of tax revenue and things like that, which I think for a lot of states can obviously point to cannabis. But can you share any of the things that you guys are looking into, of the elements that kind of help the companies? Which is okay.
You can you can now add back in depreciation and amortization on taxes. Okay. And so, more info to come on that, but there's definitely some positives for from a business perspective.
Okay, that's fantastic. All right, well then, so I feel like on a federal level, it seems like things are at least getting more excited. It seems like we're seeing some flickers of attention and interest. Again, we have to wait and see if we actually see that turn into something real. On a state story, it does seem like Pennsylvania is at the edge of being ready to go. So hopefully we see Shapiro, finally push that over, like you're saying, because again, I think big impacts for consumers who are in Pennsylvania, as well as, of course, the companies, including Jushi, especially, I think, for having, a big boost from that ultimately. And then, I think we'll have to see for Virginia if that comes through. kind of if we can see the tamping down on sort of the illicit hemp elements. So we'll have to wait and see. But any sort of other things that are sort of top of your radar or in mind as we're kind of heading into the second half of the rest of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I'd continue to pay attention to fundamentals of these businesses. We continue to see, good execution on our business, in partners' businesses as well. And so, that's the most frustrating thing. I think, if you look at the market and then you'd look at the underlying assets, you'd be like, oh man, all these guys are just like shitting the bed. It's actually quite the opposite. And so, I think that's, should be talked about. And obviously we don't have time to talk about it today, but like, we have a lot of exciting things, happening on that front. We continue to be heads down and execute. We think there's going to be some legislative change in Massachusetts that would, allow that market to consolidate a little bit, which would be, massive from an impact perspective. 6-9 retail stores to be able to, continue to build on those efficiencies, which is the name of the game. And so, looking there, and we continue to see, Ohio progress slowly but surely. I think Illinois, we'll see what happens there. But again, I can't reiterate, even in Nevada, I think the illicit market, intoxicating hemp, synthetic cannabinoid impact, that's going on out there as well. And so, I think there's still a lot of questions to be answered. There's never a dull moment in cannabis. There's a lot of questions to be answered about what's going on in California. And so that'll be interesting to see, how that plays out. And so,
is that on the tax one? Because that got pushed back ultimately, right? Was that the?
Oh no, I'm not talking about the taxes out there.
I'm
talking about an operator out there.
Got it. Yes.
And so, that'll be something that'll, come to light one way or the other. I mean, the only thing I remember, I was super close with Organigram as we watched Canada transition into adult use, into regulation. I mean, they eradicated some bad actors, right before that happened. And so, I think we'll continue to see, progression in this space. I think it's becoming very clear, who is going to continue to be at the party. And you got to be at the party, have a chip in the chair, and eventually you'll get to where we saw equities be back in 2020, 2021. So I'm patiently waiting, but every day cannabis gets talked about even more and more and more. And so, like herpes, cannabis doesn't go away for these politicians. And so we'll see what happens over the next 6 months.
Yep. All right. I think that's a lot to keep an eye on in the world of cannabis. Like you said, definitely never boring, but I do think it's an issue that because it's so popular and because it continues to kind of chip away and build and build and build and seems to have gotten attention, obviously, from both sides. I'm excluding the America Party, but, from the left and the right, a lot of different reasons to embrace it. Hopefully
we already we know where the American Party stands on cannabis. Come on.
That is true. Do you think they'll actually do it and fully commit? And
100%.
Okay. All right.
I mean, there is no better time for somebody to start a third party within the United States. I mean, you have Republican folks that are ready to jump ship over the Epstein files.
Yep.
You have moderate liberals that are saying like, what the heck is going on? Saying much worse things with the mayoral race in New York City, and there ain't much in between. And there are a lot of people that I talk to that are in between. And so I think it's interesting. And boy, like, Elon doesn't care if his net worth goes to zero, and he's got 133 billion, ways to impact stuff. It doesn't take that much to turn something like this on, especially based on where we're currently at from a political standpoint in the
That is
United
true. I think
States.
just from an issue standpoint, I think it's something that he could definitely get behind and kind of see. But I think also from a fun and meme perspective, which seems to be important to him as well, I can also see him, leaning into that front as well. So again, I think it's something that a lot of Americans can agree on from the safe regulated element. So hopefully we see some progress moving soon. It does seem like momentum is building, which is great to see. In terms of people who are following along with the industry, obviously there are a lot of places that you can find, but for following with Jushi specifically, I would obviously point people to the website. I think is always the best place to go. But I would also point people to, We Are Jushi on Twitter. I think is a great place to stay in touch quickly. But are there any other spots that people should be following you maybe as well, Trent, on Twitter? You've been posting a lot.
They can find me on Twitter. I'm pretty vocal from time to time.
You've picked it up. I think you've been more fired up, which is good. You've been getting it going.
I have something that I'm very passionate about. I have something that is near and dear to my heart. I'm one of the few people that are left from Colorado from way back in the day, and I feel like I owe it to a lot of the folks that have worked really, really hard that are either still in the industry or have moved on, to make sure we continue to do this right and not have this go the wrong way or the complete opposite way. And so, yes, I work for an MSO, but I started in this industry with me, my dad, and my cousin pooling together some money to run a small business in Colorado, and it's turned into my livelihood, and that's been awesome. And so I'm not going to let people come in and shortcut and cause problems to have it go the other way. That's just never going to happen. So that's where I'm at. So we'll continue to shed light, share the story, educate folks, and I like to tell people we're all adults, and you can make your own decision, but you better be doing it based on the facts. And so that's what I'm here to do.
No, I think that's great. Putting in the work to get the dream realized, but getting it realized right, I think is, super important. And again, you've been in this for a long, long time. Hopefully when it's all through and done and we finally get there, you should put out a book or do something, just because I think it is such a crazy journey. It obviously feels painful sometimes when you're in the middle of it, but I think when you're on the other side, it always is interesting to reflect and look back on. So appreciate, Trent, you taking the time, spending some time with us and chatting. I think it's really great to get some deep insights into some of the political aspects of the specific states. Very important stories there and important markets, hopefully opening up further there. With all that said, thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate you being on, and hope you take a look at Jushi and follow what they're doing on their sites as well as the website. All right. Thanks everyone. Really appreciate it. And we will catch you next time. Thanks, Trent.
Thanks.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at AdvisorShares.com.